therefore no need for faith.
Welcome back to another NCut movie review, and today we have Conclave. This movie is 99% perfect, especially visually, but stick around to find out that 1% that we didn't like about it.
In going into this movie, me and Josh didn't know a lot about the conclave or what this movie was about. But watching this movie, you learn that a conclave is what happens when all the College of Cardinals come together to select a new pope. Raph Fiennes is the Cardinal Dean, and he runs the conclave. And throughout the movie, he's tasked with investigating certain candidates because they might have some things in their past or things in their history that would make them not fit to be the pope. And the intensity is built up through the incredible acting by all the characters, but mainly Raph Fiennes. I mean, his acting is incredible, but also the soundtrack of this movie as well. Like some sort of like a guitar string that just pops up every now and again that really gets you on edge. And the movie, from the jump, the first thing me and Josh want to say is how beautiful the movie is shot. I mean, we always like to talk about the opening scene. The opening scene was that the Pope had passed away and all the cardinals are coming in and just paying their final respects. There was just a certain scenes in this where the camera was just drawn on the Pope's face for a considerably long time with no real dialogue in the background whatsoever. And then the Pope gets whisked into the ambulance and he's in a body bag and it's just left on his body, moving around, sort of shaking from the ambulance for like a good 20 seconds. With nothing going on. And so throughout the movie, it just had interesting shots that just sort of took you back a little bit, but also just shot beautifully.
There was almost just like uncomfortable amount of close-ups in this whole movie. Every time you saw a scene, it was just a close-up of someone. And I don't know if it was because we were sitting in the front row, but I could hear someone breathing in my ear the entire movie. A lot of breath work throughout this entire film. I think that was to build anticipation. I think it was to build some type of edge. You know, you're a part of it, you know, a bit of immersion into this film. Because a lot of it was a story base. It was a conspiracy within the Cardinals of what they've done, all the sins, and they're basically playing it off against each other and using it to get one up so they can become the next pope. And a lot of that was played off, anticipated through the breathing and through the cinematography. It was, by the way, just gorgeous, the whole film.
Yeah, I think the director Edward Berger really used the breathing as a way to show that Ray Fiennes' character was stressed and that he was going through bouts of doubt in his belief and bouts of doubt in his other cardinals of like, okay, maybe we're not all as holy as we claim to be. And he used the breathing. I mean, at first I thought the camera was a little bit too close to the actors when they're in the scenes, but the breathing was consistent, not just with Rafe's character, but every character throughout the movie, that their breathing was shown as like a key aspect of the elevated mood in the scene and also the elevated mood in the cinema.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of scenes that you watch in here is very slow and they're built up, but it actually doesn't feel slow when you're watching it. You feel like you're a part of it and you almost want the conclusion, but they're just breadcrumbs you along the entire film. What's going to happen? What's going to be the next situation? How they're going to get out of the situation? You don't know. And that's one good thing about these films, is that if they are conspiracy films, they need to be making you think. Otherwise, you kind of know the conclusion and you just get bored. A lot of this film was pushed on the idea of
not going back to the old ways.
Yeah, moving forward. A lot of it was, what side are you going to take? It was playing off each cardinal with their own ideas and how the world should be or how it should be run. Yeah. And then which cardinal is now going to go in align with that. And if they play it just right, they could be the Pope. And if they play it wrong, they're gone.
And it showed a lot of like how the church is very much an institution that is filled with corruption. The church has essentially now become less about the church and more about the power and more about the greed and things like that. And Ray Fiennes' character has a great line in the movie where he says, I haven't lost faith in God, I've only lost faith in the church, which is, I mean, what this whole movie is about. It's about corruption, it's about things like that. And that sort of edge that they were towing the line on in this movie really kept you involved in this movie, really kept you like, oh, that's such a poignant thing to say. And I mean, we can't speak highly enough about Ray Fiennes' job in this movie. I mean, a lot of people, obviously, like the first thing when we sat down in the movie, we go, oh, it's Voldemort. Like, that's where a lot of people know him from. And sometimes, I mean, he played Voldemort great, but it could also be sometimes comical as well, you know, with the way he He is a phenomenal actor. I mean, in all the movies he's been in, Grand Budapest Hotel, The Menu, like he commands the screen, and in this it was no different. I believed he was the Cardinal Dean. I believed that he was going through bouts of struggling with his beliefs. I believed that he was trying to get to the bottom of these things. And a key point in the movie is like, he doesn't want to be the Pope. He's like, the whole time, I don't want to be the Pope. But you also see throughout when they're doing the conclave and the voting that he keeps getting votes, and his ability to show that like even he who didn't want the Pope role at all, he didn't want the power, it slowly crept in when people were like, you could be the Pope, you should be the Pope, and he was like, maybe I should be then. The way he acted, it was just great.
Yeah, it literally showed you man's corruption. But the first thing that Geordie said to me when this first started, range. He cried on command like Margot Robbie in Babylon, one tear down the cheek. That's just the range this man has, and that we can't speak highly enough of people with that word.
And other actors that deserve a little shout out. I mean, Stanley Tucci, the man. What can you expect when you go into a movie with this guy? You know he's going to put in his best effort. He was great in this film. John Lithgow, I mean, he's always good in his movies. Great at acting. And I feel like, I said this when we were watching the movie, I feel like he plays weasels really well, John Lithgow. I feel like it's just his bread and butter to be like this kind of like guy who's acting all good and this and that, but then he's actually got like an ulterior motive and he's a bit slimy and he's a bit like a weasel. He's just great. He's perfected that. I know, he's so good at it. Sergio Castellitto, who played Tedesco, who was one of the cardinals, who was pretty much in the main running, who wanted to go back to the traditional ways. He's Italian, he's from Rome. He wants the Catholic Church to be back to the motherland, to Rome. He was great. And the way he flipped from English to Italian, I mean, he just set the tone. The way he spoke in Italian, made me want to speak Italian. It was so cool the way he spoke.
Blacked out! Immagino che il decano possa dirci chi sono. Lasciamo dire a loro.
But also a special little shout out to Isabella Rossellini. She played Sister Agnes. Now, she didn't have a whole lot of lines in this movie, but her facial acting in this movie was incredible. And you could see in her face and in her eyes, like, I want what's best for the church. And she was serious in some bits, not so serious in the next, but yeah, her acting, special shout out to her.
Yeah, she really commanded the screen. And it wasn't just her facial acting, but it was also the way she was able to be just humorous by doing nothing. You could see how innocent she was, and all she, like Geordie was saying, all she wanted was good for the church. And then she would come out and say, this is one of her lines in the film. She was saying,
although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears. His suspicions were correct. She was indeed here at the specific request of Cardinal Tremblay.
which is the right thing to say at the right time, and it changed every cardinal's opinion immediately. And just having, like, you know, those little lines in there and really making her a part of the film with those little remarks was just wonderful.
The humor in this movie was actually very surprising. There was certain scenes, obviously, like, this movie's so serious and the key aspects and topics of this movie is really serious, but there was just a few jokes or like moments that would come along that were actually quite funny, would make you laugh. And that was so surprising in a movie like this. You'd think it would be all no time for laughter or anything like that, but there were moments that caught you off guard. I think that helped with the flow of the movie and also the flow of the plot, because it didn't feel so bogged down and so heavy. But a perfect way for this movie to describe it, it's just like, we wanted to see the ending so bad. We wanted to see who was going to be the next pope. We wanted to see if any of these conspiracies about the other popes, the candidates, the scandals were real. The ability for the director to build that up for you is, when you're watching this, was palpable on the screen.
The set design also helped that. Like, I couldn't help but just look every time in the background, not just the foreground, but every time in the background, how beautiful the Vatican was. And then looking at, like, the money that's through that place with the marble everywhere they go. It's just so beautiful looking at the background as well as the foreground, because when you get a movie that has both things, such as great acting and amazing set designs, you can see that they've really go so deep into the source material that you almost pay so much respect to what you're showing. It actually does come across on the screen. And
yeah, the Vatican, I mean, how beautiful is it? It's just such an incredible... I don't know if it was filmed on site. We should probably know that, but we don't. But
I mean, to be fair, we've both been there and it looked identical.
Yeah, and it looks very much like the Vatican, and it was beautifully shot, the way that they paid homage to the art, but also just showing it off. Like, it's there, show it off. It looks beautiful. Now, we've said all these good things about the movie and how good it was. And look, it was so good for about 95% of the film. Unfortunately, the movie just takes a turn right at the very end, and it's just like, oh god, Hollywood got their hands on this again. Look, it can be left up to your own interpretation if you think the twist at the end of this movie was good or it was needed, but it wasn't needed. Like, they could have done anything with, like, anything else, and they just went down this completely surprising route that, look, if they were going for people not being able to tell what was coming, they got us. It was so left of field. It was like, where did that even come from? Is this the same movie that we've just been watching this whole time? And then the movie just suddenly ends, and you're like, wow, that's what I'm left with. And look, we're saying that's bad or anything. It's just, it caught us off guard. And yeah, I mean, this movie would have been almost perfect if it wasn't just for that weird ending.
I think it's because we see it so much. Like, if it was a new
concept,
concept...
felt out of place.
Yeah, it did. If it was a new concept, we'd be like, okay, this is interesting, maybe a different take I've never seen.
Yeah.
But because we've seen it and it's being pressed in your face so much, you're just like, I can't help but think, stupid. It's a stupid conclusion.
I can't help but think they just pushed it because it's Hollywood. Like, it's just like, yeah, let's just throw this out there.
It's like, well, we've pushed everything else. Why not just chuck one more thing to add to the whole list of things? It's like, let's just think of something different, because I would have enjoyed a bigger conclusion of this random person's rocked up and all of a sudden he's won our hearts.
Yeah.
And then...
Exactly.
But now it's changed. Now it's changed back to something shit.
And look, we thought throughout the film that Cardinal Benedictes, who's played by Carlos Diaz, that we thought that he might have been having a relationship with the Pope that passed away, like a gay relationship or something like that. Like, it just seems so left of field. So... It was all great, but that ending, I don't know, it just left a little weird taste in my mouth. I just, pause on that.
Big
I can't be
pause,
saying
man.
that.
Shit.
But it just cut. All that build-up of tension, all that what's going to happen, like Rafe's character, it just went out of the window so quickly. It could have ended better and... And
it got to a point where you couldn't get out of the rabbit hole. It was like, how the hell do we finish it? Because you've been building up this suspense the entire film. And then it was like, okay, let's come to a conclusion. I think you came to the wrong conclusion. I think the roads ended not at Rome.
It's hard to hit a home run. It's hard to finish something off beautifully. And that's what this movie struggled with.
Kind of like Prisoners, I feel like that was almost the same thing. Almost build up perfectly.
Yeah.
And then be like, what the fuck?
And it's hard to sort of keep that intensity and that palpableness the whole time because it has to end, right?
Yeah.
It has to end. You can't just keep dropping little clues or little, this and that. It has to end. So,
and what is the best ending? Like, we don't know.
It's hard to get a payoff.
Yeah, it is. We don't know. We just think that it should have been different.
Yeah.
What that difference is, it's up to you.
Knows, exactly.
Yeah, it's up to you. But we still think, not like Geordie said, 95% of this is fucking immaculate.
99.5% of this movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's immaculate. The whole thing from top to bottom. Yeah. And especially like us going in here, we had zero idea what this was about. Agreed. I don't know about Geordie, but I didn't have an idea about what it's about at all. So going in here being very surprised that, I've just watched a phenomenal film, finally, was another aspect, I guess, to this where I really enjoyed.
And as two guys who aren't religious ourselves, going into a movie that is about religion, you think like, is this going to be sort of shoved down my throat away? Or is it going to be sort of like a way of like trying to come over, convert or believe in this? But this movie didn't do any of that at all. It was just source material about the whole process of picking a new pope. And it was all about that rather than an exterior message. Like there might have been other messages in it, sure. But it mainly was just about a beautifully written film with intelligent characters and intelligent story writing, intelligent dialogues, and just building up the pressure and building up excitement or palpitism.
Do it.
Building up your tension without any action or anything on screen and just with conversations. And it doesn't happen a lot in Hollywood these days and with movies these days. So I thought that was a really good aspect of this movie as well.
Anyway, guys, as always, we end these reviews with a rating, and this is one of the best movies of 2024, considering we're doing a wrap-up lately.
And it's in our top 10.
It is in our top 10, so be out on the lookout for our top 10 because it's dropping soon. I know it's been out for a month or two or whatever,
In
but
Australia,
we get this shit late. Unfortunately, because we're down under,
they
fucking get us, they ship it to us late. So we're here now, we're reviewing it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, my rating, same. I mean, this movie was incredible. Like we said, 99.5% of the movie was amazing, and it was really fun to watch. If you're a cinema lover, a movie enthusiast, you'll love this because it was shot beautifully, it was acted beautifully. Raph Fiennes, I mean, what an actor.
Anyway, guys, it's been another Uncut Movie Review. Peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut.